Hi, my name is Pam Lamp, and I write a blog called Who I Met Today, where I interview all kinds of wonderful people who do interesting things that I want to learn about and share. I do everything from a fortune cookie maker to a food stylist to an audiobook narrator to a man who knows everything you could ever want to know about the Gilded Age mansions in Rhode Island. In January, I launched my podcast to supplement the blog, and I'm very excited about that. Would love to have you follow along. I also love to talk about books, love to read, and every month I write a book recommendation article for 60andMe. I've read all of the books that I recommend and liked them, and I tend to gear toward historical fiction. That's what I like. I feel like I learn something when I read a historical fiction book. So today I have 3 historical fiction. None of them are about World War II, break from that, and a literary fiction and a mystery. Today's first book is called Wrong Place, Wrong Time. Pretty cover. And you may have heard about this one. It's been in all the magazines and on a lot of the lists, been chosen as a book club pick by a couple of celebrities. And I will say, I think it deserves the hype and the buzz that it's getting. I really could not put it down. Takes place in England. A mom one night watches her teenage son come home and watches him murder someone on the street right in front of her. He's hauled off to jail, put in handcuffs, shoved into the police car. She finally falls asleep that night and, you know, tossing and turning about all the things that she's going to check into when she wakes up the next morning. And when she does wake up the next morning, it's a day before. I'm not much for time travel, but I will tell you this novel was done seamlessly. And I'd love to talk to the author about how she wrapped her mind around it. You go backwards in time. The mom is solving mysteries all along the way, but it's also thought-provoking. You know, she's looking at her life, and of course she knows how it comes out, so she's looking through it with a different lens than she did the first time. She stopped and smelled the roses more often, if you will. So I highly recommend Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. The next book, and I don't have a picture of this one, is called The Social Graces by Renee Rosen. This was published in 2021, so you might be able to pick it up at the library. Thousands of great reviews on Amazon. If you're a fan of The Gilded Age, HBO's The Gilded Age, which I am, I think you will like it. And I read it to coincide with our trip to Newport to see all the Gilded Age mansions. It's historical fiction, and it's a story of Caroline Aster, the Mrs. Aster, and Alva Vanderbilt, narrated by those 2 women and narrated by society. It's a story of their feud, fictional story, of course. Caroline Aster was old money. She was considered a knickerbocker, and knickerbockers did not like new money, which is what Alva Vanderbilt was. So it's just the story of Alva working her way into society. I found it highly entertaining. I can't wait to go back and read some of the other books that Renee Rosen has written. She has one called Park Avenue Summer, which is a story of Helen Gurley Brown and Cosmopolitan. Again, a historical fiction story. She has a couple of Chicago books that sound interesting. And next year, What the Lady, I'm sorry, not What the Lady Wants. That's a Chicago book. In 2023, she has a book based on the life of cosmetic king, or cosmetic queen, I should say, Estee Lauder, coming out. So I thought that sounded really interesting too. The next book is called The Matchmakers Gift by Linda Loigman. You may have heard of this one too. It has a beautiful cover. Linda's book is what prompted me to talk to a ketubah designer. Her cover is based on ketubah designs. I had no idea what a ketubah even was. It's magical realism. Not my cup of tea usually, but this book is heartwarming, happy, interesting, and fun. Abby discovers, after her grandmother Sarah has passed away, Sarah's journal, and learns that Sarah was a Jewish matchmaker in Lower East Side, New York, back in the day when matchmaking was totally made up of men. And it's just a lovely tale of, plus Linda has thrown in Jewish culture, Jewish matchmaking, backstory, and Jewish matchmaking is still a thing in New York. And I have, there's a story about Linda, the author, on my blog if you'd like to read more of the backstory of the book. But I highly recommend The Matchmaker's Gift. The next book is called Lucy by the Sea by Elizabeth Strout. I bet a lot of you have read O. William and Olive Kitteridge by the same author. And while I was reading this lovely book, all I could think of was, why have I never read an Elizabeth Strout book before? Lucy and William are divorced, an older couple, and when the pandemic happens, they retreat from New York to their Maine seaside cottage, and they stay together during the pandemic. And, you know, they renew their friendship and their companionship. And I just saw a lot of myself when I was reading this book, from a standpoint of age and hope and life and love and companionship. I can see why her books are so well loved. Again, Lucy by the Sea, Elizabeth Strout. The final book, another historical fiction, is called Jacqueline in Paris. It's by Anne Ma. Some of you may have read The Lost Vintage by the same author. I haven't, but I've heard good things about it, and I'm definitely going to look into it now. I've read all kinds of books about Jackie Kennedy Onassis, or Jacqueline, as I learned she likes to be called, but I'd never read one about the summer she was a college co-ed, and she spent, not the summer, the year she was a college co-ed, and spent a year in Paris. That's where she developed her lifelong love of all things French and art and culture and design, and a lot of things that she brought with her to the White House. The story is told in Jacqueline's voice. She's very eager to head off with a group of 35 women and get out from underneath her smothering household and her mom, who just wants her to find someone suitable to marry. It's told in her voice, like I said. It's a little privileged sounding, but that's who she is, and that's part of the story. I thought it was very, very interesting, and would definitely recommend it. So that's what I have this time. I'd love to hear what you're reading or what books you recommend. I'd also love to hear from you if you think you might be a good match for a story for me to do, or if you know someone that you can connect me with. I would really appreciate it. That information is below as well. So until next time, happy reading. Thanks.